Did you know that around 1 in 5 people are born highly sensitive? For years, many saw this as a weakness. But science now shows it might actually be one of humanity's greatest strengths. If you've ever felt emotions more deeply than those around you, or been overwhelmed by things others seem to ignore, you're not broken, you're gifted. Today, we're uncovering what makes sensitive people so unique, and how this hidden trait can change the way you see yourself forever.
Find high sensitivity as a preference to process information more deeply. So we started out with a questionnaire measure of sensitivity, but of course everybody wants to know if this thing is real. And mostly we've been interested in how the brain works in sensitive people and non-sensitive people. One of the findings that I find most important is that when we compared sensitive people and non-sensitive people on things like neuroticism, depression, anxiety, shyness, they're actually less anxious and depressed, more socially competent than the non-sensitive person with a good upbringing. Sensitive people, of course, are different in relationships because they're different in everything they do. So a person can rehearse alone, for instance, for a recital, and then they go on stage and they're so overstimulated by the lights in the crowd that they don't do as well. Perhaps the most important thing for me about high sensitivity is that sensitive people appreciate themselves and are appreciated by others. But I'm particularly concerned about children because so many sensitive adults will tell me that that their parents didn't understand them and they were bullied and they had a really hard time. For adults, finding out that you're highly sensitive often is just a complete turnaround in terms of reframing your life, understanding why you made certain decisions, and appreciating yourself and not comparing yourself so much to non-sensitive people.
I never planned to write any of these books. And in the book I said this, but it's much clearer now that this trait is found in a minority of people, but a substantial minority, about 20%. And it's found in at least 100 species besides humans. And so we now know, and this is new, this idea of personalities within a species, that there could be two types rather than just one ideal. We used to think in evolution that everything is sort of merging towards the perfect animal in that particular environment. And the two strategies, one is to be very responsive and pay careful attention to everything that's going on. And you might say, well, of course it's better to pay attention. But it isn't always, because sometimes there's nothing really that you can learn from this situation that applies to the next situation. And we all know, as sensitive people, that there is energy that is taken up by being so observant and processing everything so deeply. The example I like is that if there's a traffic jam, because this is me, I always know all the shortcuts. So this invisibility factor has made it very hard for people to discover this trait without really getting inside the minds of sensitive people. There were times when people said that it was like neuroticism, but it's not neuroticism, which is a tendency towards anxiety or depression. And sensitive people who've had a difficult childhood are more likely to be anxious and depressed. But if you haven't had a difficult childhood, the new research is that you're less likely to be anxious or depressed than other people. So that's one of the exciting things that's also happening, and that is the publication of an article called Vantage Sensitivity, which is published in a really good scientific journal.
Many animals, not just humans, are highly sensitive. This sensitivity helps them survive in different situations by reacting quickly to dangers or changes in their environment. In families, being sensitive can be beneficial, helping members understand each other better and adapt to changes. Let's dive into why some people are extra sensitive. Think of it as a different way of evolving, where paying close attention and thinking deeply about things are the focus. Unlike what some used to think, being super sensitive isn't the same as being easily upset. In fact, those who are sensitive but had a good childhood might feel less anxious or sad. Studies show that being very sensitive could actually be a plus, helping us survive and thrive in certain situations.
And I'll describe that more to you. He was studying rhesus monkeys, who turns out there are some that he called uptight and some that are laid back. But he wanted to see what would happen if you cross-fostered them and gave them to very skilled mothers or just ordinary mothers at birth. So as soon as he figured out which kind they were, he would give them to a different type of mother. Well, it turned out that the uptight monkeys, and I don't think he calls them that anymore, became the leaders of the troops when they were raised by skilled mothers. And although evolutionary people do not like to talk about survival of groups, they only like to talk about survival of individuals, I'm sure that the human race and families and all kinds of social groups have benefited from the combination of a sensitive and non-sensitive people. He has a theory that in every family, it's an advantage to have one highly sensitive child and one not sensitive child, so that if one survives, if the environment is best for one, then it'll survive or thrive, even if the other doesn't. So the way I've been talking about sensitivity lately, and it came out of my writing my book on psychotherapy in the highly sensitive person, which, as if anybody's a therapist or anybody has a therapist, slip them the book, because therapists have been kind of slow to understand about this. So I came up with an acronym, which DOES, which you can think of as DOES if you're a woman or DOES if you're a man. And this is the fundamental thing about us, is that we process information more deeply than others, and everything else kind of flows out of that.
In this part of video, we explore how people who are highly sensitive tend to process information in a much deeper way. This means their brains work a bit harder on the things they see or hear, making them more aware and thoughtful about their surroundings. They might feel emotions more intensely or pick up on the moods of others easily. This special ability also means they might be affected more by cultural differences in thinking or doing tasks. Their empathy and ability to mirror emotions make them very in tune with how others feel, almost as if they can experience those emotions themselves.
Wolf's ideas and my interviews and the questionnaire, but we've been able to do what are called fMRIs, functional magnetic resonance imagery, so that you have somebody in the MRI machine and they're doing something. And so one of the studies we've done is shown people pictures that are only slightly different, and we find that the sensitive people's brain activation in particular areas that have to do with deeper processing or more elaborate processing, perceptual those are the areas that are being activated. So that's an example of another one that I really like is a cultural study where they know that people in different cultures look at things differently. People who come from U.S. and from more individualistic cultures can figure out the difference between the lines but not the boxes. I know it sounds crazy, but they had already demonstrated this. It turned out for the highly sensitive people, their culture did not affect their ability to see these differences. It's also what makes a lot of us shy, is because you can think of brilliant things to say when you're at home.
Highly sensitive people are known for feeling things deeply and having a strong sense of empathy. This means they can pick up on others' emotions easily, almost as if they're mirroring them, thanks to something called mirror neurons in the brain. Whether you're a man or woman, or come from different cultural backgrounds, can change how openly you show these traits.
So the third one is E, for being emotionally reactive or responsive, and also for empathy. The only reason cries easily is not on the test is because men don't answer yes to that as much as women do. It's just a lot harder for men, and it's and in some cultures they hide it pretty completely, but not in this area. So this emotional reactivity, I found this lovely article on someone rethinking cognition and emotion, which they said cognition, thinking, is impossible without emotion, because you won't think about anything for any amount of time at all. And furthermore, if you have an experience and you need to learn from it, you'll learn from it only as much as you think about it afterwards, and you'll think about it afterwards only as much as you cared about what happened. So then this makes sense that we have to have stronger emotional reactions in order to process things more. So back to the MRI machine, we have found that so we've done 2 studies, one in which people were looking at pictures that are supposed to create emotions, like snails and snakes and spiders and puppy dogs and birthday cakes and things are supposed to create different emotions. And so this one was of people being in the scanner, looking at pictures of their beloved or of a stranger. And sensitive people looking at anyone with a happy or a sad expression compared to neutral showed more activation, but especially when their partner was showing a happy expression. And there's something that was discovered only about 20 years ago called mirror neurons. I don't know if you've heard of mirror neurons, but some of you have been in school recently. Mirror neurons are a part of the brain that they first discovered in monkeys, where if someone kicks a ball, your brain fires as if you had kicked the ball. But these mirror neurons are what give us empathy, what allows us to read people's minds and to predict what people are going to do. But among other things, it's good for making people feel better. And sensitive people have more empathy and they have more activation in the mirror neurons.
In this part of the video, we explore why some people are more sensitive than others. Some people are naturally more sensitive than others, and it's partly because of their genes. Research shows that certain genes, especially those linked to the brain chemical dopamine, play a big role in sensitivity. This means that if someone in your family is really sensitive, you might be too. Also, how well someone does on tests or in school can be influenced by these sensitivity-related genes. So, understanding these genetic and brain differences can help us understand why some people are more sensitive.
So, I was teaching a course at Kripalu in the spring, and somebody said, I'm so tired of picking up on what everybody else is feeling. But every time they'd go and do a study and look at all the people with short alleles, they found that they weren't all depressed. Finally, they got it that if you had a troubled childhood or stressful life, and you had the short allele, then you were going to be depressed. Then a few people got really clever and thought, well, what is it there for that about 20% of people have this? And I suddenly, the article shows up that these group of scholars in China had observed that the personality measures that we have, one of the most popular being the Big Five. I don't know if you've heard of the Big Five, but it's introversion, extroversion, neuroticism, agreeableness, conscientiousness, and open-mindedness. They looked at dopamine, and there are 78 dopamine alleles, but they found that 10 of them were highly related to the HSP scale at the kind of level that you would predict from what's known about personality and genetics are the same, the uptight ones. But also, when they have this, they are superior cognitive performance, a wide range of, I can't remember quite the phrase, a broad range of superior cognitive performance, something like that, for rhesus monkeys too. This is very interesting to me. And this guy said, maybe the adaptability of rhesus monkeys, because they can live almost anywhere on Earth, and human beings, is because we have these 2 alleles that allow the more responsive ones to figure out how to adapt and the others imitate it. So now Jay Belsky, who is kind of the bad boy in psychology, is going around saying that all the interventions we've been doing all these years to help people have only been working on sensitive people. They leave them in the orphanage where they've been for a while. Turns out only the children with the short alleles get any benefit from being in foster care. At 54 months...
Let's pause here for a moment, because if you're still watching this, chances are you've recognized yourself in these words. Maybe you've always been told you're too emotional or that you overthink everything. But what if those very traits are proof that your nervous system is wired for depth, empathy, and awareness? Sensitive people aren't weak. They're mirrors of the world. They feel what others can't and notice what others overlook. So instead of asking yourself, why am I like this? Maybe the real question is, how can I honor this gift? Remember, your sensitivity is not a flaw, it's your compass. As we close, I want to leave you with this. Being highly sensitive in today's world can feel heavy, even isolating. But the truth is, sensitivity is not your burden. It's your brilliance. The world desperately needs people who can feel deeply, connect authentically, and bring empathy where it's missing. So if you've ever felt like you're too much, know this: you are exactly enough. I'd love to hear your story. How has your sensitivity shaped your life? Share it in the comments so others can see they're not alone. And if this message touched you, don't forget to subscribe. Because together, we're building a space where sensitivity is celebrated, not silenced. And before you go, comment, "I am healing to affirm your growth. You are seen, you are valued, and you are not alone."